Have you ever had a cop show up at your door and say, "We got a call about you," and you had absolutely no idea what to say next? That phrase is one of the most dangerous 4 words in law enforcement because it's specifically designed to make you start talking before you've had a single second to think. And the moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you may have already handed officers everything they need to build a case against you. Subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you are the exact words a lawyer would tell you to say the moment you hear, "We got a call." And these words work whether the officer is at your door, on your porch, or standing next to your car window. Most people hand over their rights in the first 15 seconds, and they don't even realize it's happening. This video changes that. Here's the reality. When a police officer shows up and says, "We got a call," they are almost always in what's called the investigation phase before they even knock. That means someone told them something, real or exaggerated or completely false, and now they're at your location to find out if it rises to the level of an arrest. The problem is that most people hear those words and immediately go into defense mode. They start explaining. They start denying. They start filling in every gap the officer has with their own words. And I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is the same every single time. The person at the door talks too much in the first 60 seconds, and that talking is almost always what escalates a simple check into a full investigation. You don't know what the call said. You don't know if it was accurate. You don't know what legal authority the officer has at that moment. And you absolutely cannot make good decisions. With that many unknowns, that's exactly why what you say first matters more than anything. Let me show you exactly how the first tactic works and why it has to come before everything else. The moment an officer says, "We got a call," or any version of that phrase, the first thing out of your mouth should be this. You stay calm, you look at the officer, and you say, "I appreciate you coming by. Am I being detained or am I free to go?" Say it exactly like that. "I appreciate you coming by. Am I being detained or am I free to go?" The first part is polite. It sets a tone that is cooperative without being a pushover. The second part is a legal question that the officer is required to answer honestly. Here's why this works. Under the Fourth Amendment, a police officer cannot legally hold you in a conversation without reasonable suspicion that a crime has been or is being committed. That's the legal standard. In plain English, it means a knock on your door and "we got a call" is not automatically enough to make you stay and answer questions. When you ask whether you're being detained, you're forcing the officer to reveal what legal ground they are actually standing on. If they say you're not being detained, you are legally free to end the interaction. If they say you are being detained, now you know this is serious and you move to the next tactic immediately. This is 100% legal. You are not interfering with anything. You are not obstructing. You are asking a question that every citizen in this country has the right to ask. Bad way. Most people hear, "We got a call," and say, "What call? About what? I didn't do anything." Then the officer says, "Can you just tell me what happened earlier?" And now you're in a full back and forth where every answer creates a new question. 20 minutes later, you've told a story, contradicted yourself twice, and given the officer probable cause you never intended to give. Good way. Smart people say, "I appreciate you coming by. Am I being detained or am I free to go?" The officer either tells you you're free to go, which means you can politely end the interaction, or tells you that you are being detained, which means you now know exactly where you stand, and you protect yourself with everything that comes next. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection in the first moments of any unexpected police contact. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Florida versus Bostick, the court made clear that a person is seized for Fourth Amendment purposes only when a reasonable person would not feel free to leave. Asking whether you're detained puts that standard directly into play, and it forces the officer to be honest about it right in front of you. Have you ever had an officer show up at your home or approach you somewhere unexpected and say some version of "we got a call"? Drop a comment below telling me where it happened and what you said. I read every single comment, and your story might help someone else watching this right now. The second tactic is what you use the moment the officer says, "Yes, you're being detained," or starts behaving like you're even without saying it. This is the phrase that defense attorneys use in court to protect their clients, and it starts with knowing what you are and are not required to do in this situation. Here's exactly what you say. You look at the officer and say this clearly. "I understand. I'm going to remain silent, and I would like a lawyer." Those 14 words. "I understand. I'm going to remain silent, and I would like a lawyer." Say them once, then stop talking. Here's the reality. Most people have no idea that the moment you say those words out loud, the entire legal landscape of that interaction shifts. Under the Supreme Court's ruling in Burgos versus Tompkins, simply going silent isn't always enough to protect you. You have to actually say out loud that you are invoking your right to remain silent. And under Edwards versus Arizona, once you request an attorney, all police questioning must stop until your attorney is present. Those are two separate constitutional shields, and you activate both of them with one sentence. Here's why the "we got a call" situation makes this especially important. When an officer says they received a call, they are telling you that someone already gave them a version of events. You don't know what version. You don't know if it's accurate. Anything you say to counter that version without knowing the details is guesswork. And guesswork that contradicts the call, even accidentally, looks like lying. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court to argue that clients' later statements should be suppressed because their rights were violated after invoking silence. Bad way. Most people say, "Look, I don't need a lawyer. I didn't do anything wrong. Just let me explain." Then they explain. The officer listens, takes notes, and now your explanation is the official record. If any part of it is inconsistent with something they already know, you just created a problem that didn't exist before you spoke. Good way. Smart people say, "I understand. I'm going to remain silent and I would like a lawyer." The officer may push back. They may say this is just a conversation. They may say a lawyer isn't necessary. You repeat it calmly. "I understand. I am going to remain silent and I would like a lawyer." Watch what happens. The officer now has to either release you or move forward under a completely different legal framework where your words are protected. This is 100% legal, and it is the single most powerful thing you can say after you learn you're being detained. Former police officers have confirmed this works. When a citizen invokes this right clearly and calmly, officers who are following proper procedure are trained to stop questioning immediately. The entire dynamic shifts. Now, here's the third tactic, and this one applies specifically to your door. Because there is a crucial legal difference between talking to an officer at your door and letting them inside, and most people blur that line without knowing it. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. You do not have to open your door all the way. You do not have to step outside. You do not have to let the officer into your home under most circumstances. And the way you handle those first few physical moments at your door matters just as much as the words you say. Here's exactly what you do. If you answer the door at all, you step to the doorway, you do not step outside onto your porch, and you do not invite the officer in. You keep your hand on the door and you ask this: "Do you have a warrant?" 4 words. Do you have a warrant? If they say no, you say this: "Then I am not able to let you in, but I am happy to speak with you through my attorney." Then you close the door gently without slamming it. Here's why this is so important. Under Payton v. New York, the Supreme Court ruled that police cannot enter a home to make an arrest without either a warrant or genuine emergency circumstances. The key word there is enter. But here's what many people don't know. If you step outside your own home onto the porch when an officer asks you to, you may have just changed your legal status. Once you're outside, some courts have held that you're now in a semi-public space, and certain protections that apply inside your home may no longer apply. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when police show up at your door. Stay in the doorway. Do not step out. Do not invite them in. And always ask about the warrant first. Listen closely because this is critical. The officer saying, "We got a call," gives them a reason to knock. It does not give them a reason to come in. It does not give them a reason to search. It does not give them a reason to question you without your consent. Knowing the difference between those things is the difference between a knock that ends in 2 minutes and one that ends in handcuffs. Bad way. Most people hear the knock, open the door wide, step out onto the porch because the officer gestures for them to come out and start answering questions in the open air while the officer looks past them into the house. Now the officer can claim they saw something in plain view through the open door. Now you are outside and no longer protected by the home's extra legal shield. Good way. Smart people step to the doorway without opening the door fully, keep their hand on the door, and immediately ask, "Do you have a warrant?" Watch what happens. Without a warrant, the officer has to answer honestly. They either have one or they don't. And if they don't, you have just legally drawn a line they cannot cross without either getting a warrant or manufacturing an emergency that doesn't exist. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. Former police officers have confirmed this works, and I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos where this exact approach kept a door knock from becoming a search. If you've made it this far, you're already in a completely different category than most people who will ever face this situation. You are serious about this. Show me you're serious by hitting that like button right now, because this information needs to reach more people, and that one tap tells the algorithm to push this to someone who needs it tonight. Now let me walk you through exactly how a real "we got a call" door knock plays out so you can see both paths clearly side by side. It's 9 at night. Someone knocks. You look through the peephole and it's an officer in uniform. You open the door. The officer says, "Hey, we got a call about a disturbance at this address earlier tonight. Can I ask you a few questions?" Wrong path. You say, "A disturbance?" "There was no disturbance. My neighbor and I had a disagreement, but it was nothing serious." The officer says, "What kind of disagreement?" You say, "He came over and we argued about the fence line. It got a little heated, but nobody got hurt." The officer says, "Did voices get raised?" You say, a little bit, yeah, but it wasn't a big deal. Now the officer has a verbal altercation with raised voices at this address, confirmed by you. They ask to come in. You feel like you've already been cooperative, so you say, sure. They come in. The interaction is now inside your home, and it escalates from there. Right path. You step to the doorway without opening the door all the way. The officer says the same thing. We got a call about a disturbance here tonight. You say, I appreciate you coming by. Do you have a warrant? The officer says no. You say, then I'm not able to let you in. Am I being detained or am I free to go? The officer says, you're not being detained right now. You say, then I'm going to remain silent and I'd like to speak with an attorney before answering any questions. Have a good night. You close the door gently. That is a complete, legal, respectful interaction. You did not confirm anything. You did not contradict anything. You did not give them a single piece of information they did not already have when they knocked. And you did it without yelling, without being rude, and without touching anyone. The difference between those two paths can be the difference between your name appearing on a police report as a witness versus appearing on one as a suspect. In 3 days, I'm dropping the video on what to do when cops claim they have a warrant but won't show it to you. That is a situation that trips up even people who know their rights. And the phrase in that video has stopped illegal entries cold. Subscribe right now or you will miss it because that video is already getting attention and it might be the most important one I've put out. Let me bring this all together so it's locked in your memory before you close this video. The first thing you say when an officer says, we got a call, is to ask if you are being detained or free to go, because that question forces the officer to reveal what legal authority they actually have. If you are being detained, you immediately tell them you are going to remain silent and you want a lawyer, because those two rights working together shut down questioning completely. You never fully open your door, and you never step outside your home, because staying in your doorway is a physical act of legal protection that most people give up without realizing it. And you always ask about a warrant before any conversation about letting an officer into your space goes any further. 4 responses, all of them calm, all of them polite, all of them 100% backed by the Constitution. You now know what most adults in this country were never taught. The information in this video came from real court cases, real body cam footage, and real legal strategy that defense attorneys use every day. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the warrant video dropping in 3 days, because that one closes the last gap in everything you learned here today. Smash that like button if this just changed the way you'll answer your door the next time an officer knocks, because that one tap puts this in front of someone else who needs it just as badly as you did 10 minutes ago. And drop a comment right now telling me whether you've ever had an officer show up and say some version of, we got a call, and what you said in response. Your story matters, and it might be the thing that convinces someone else to watch this all the way through. Stay safe out there.